Does Genshin Impact deserve all the hate? That's going to be the primary topic of this video, because I do believe there's a lot of criticism that you can give legitimately to the game, but a lot of people don't. And if you're looking at things from an outside perspective, it makes it very difficult to really get a rough analysis of the game, because a lot of opinions are from people who don't play the game at all. It is also incredibly common to just dogpile onto the game to talk about it. So as someone who's played this game essentially since release, I want to give my honest thoughts, and I want to specifically emphasize the positives. Don't get me wrong, I will mention there are negatives, but it's very easy to find someone who just talks badly about the game. So if you want that, you can head somewhere else. With that being said, please keep in mind, my opinions can differ from yours. I may have a different perspective on things from you. I am not free to play. That may impact your opinion much more than impacts mine. I am not a C6 R5 whale, nor am I a C6 whale. I only have C2 of one character. Given that most discussion of Genshin boils down to the game is bad because it's gacha, I want to have this be a legitimate talking point for the game itself. If you don't play the game, I don't think it's fair to criticize it in the slightest. I just want to be blunt about that. Even if you dislike gacha games, you haven't played it, so your criticism is automatically invalid. And if you go into the game hating gachas, hating it as a whole, then you are obviously not going to have a good time. With that being said, despite the immense amount of hate that the game gets, whether it's for the gacha, the animations, the character design, whatever, I do think there are a lot of positives. But I want to talk about, first and foremost, one of the biggest reasons I think the game gets so much hate: the community. The community will emphasize or make up facts about certain characters. They will boil down a character's entire personality and design or lore into them being mommy, or lesbian, or gay, and essentially it turns what could have potentially been an interesting character from somebody else's perspective into one of the most sexualized characters in the game. This happened with Alhaitham, Shenhe, Yelan, Raiden, Miko, and so on. And under normal circumstances, this is fine, except the fact that this doesn't just become a situation in which they believe it and keep it to themselves. Instead, they will spread this throughout the community as though it's fact, such as the individuals who ship Yelan with Ningguang, or Shenhe with Ganyu, or Keqing and Ganyu, or Miko and Raiden. The list goes on. Even Zhongli and Venti, or Zhongli and Xiao, or Venti and Xiao. It becomes fact and canon to them, so they will argue you down if you disagree. They project themselves onto units, and as such they use that as a either shield to defend their opinion, or as a method to insult somebody or destroy their game experience, because at the end of the day, I think it's all about how you experience the game. I enjoyed the game, but I don't care about anyone's relationship with one another, and that oftentimes deters people away from characters. This also happens with a character's strength. This happens both in-game and in story. If a character does anything at all that is significant in the story, they're either loved by the community for ages or perceived and talked about as one of the strongest individuals in game. This worsens if they're also important or strong in the meta. An example could be Kazuha. The community discussion around certain strong characters, Yelan, Xiangling, or Kazuha, ends up being that this character is good, you should roll for them, but it doesn't necessarily emphasize when they're good or why they're good. For Xiangling, a lot of individuals like to discount every other Pyro character except her, when she needs so much energy recharge that obviously most individuals are going to either run the Catch, Favonius, or Engulfing Lightning on her. This is further emphasized by the fact that you kind of need Bennett to make her work in that scenario. If you're talking about Kazuha, he's good at buffing your damage, but he's not obviously going to be used in every scenario, and you kind of need good units to be buffed in the first place. And the community themselves talk about the game's flaws so much, whether they hate the resin, the gacha, how strong a character is, how weak a character is, the constellations, whatever the case may be, that it becomes increasingly difficult to discuss the game's positives as a whole. And I think that the negativity people feel towards Genshin is usually towards the community and not the game itself, but they're so intertwined that it's difficult to separate the two. For content creators, you may have individuals who don't show their math, and their words taken as fact, so that carries over to every other community. You also have the common joke of haha Genshin bad, or haha Genshin player, or Genshin content creator equals pedo, and this is only further emphasized by the issues that occasionally pop up, such as the Elliot situation, which spread over to hate of Tignari the character, which then spread over into people just saying all Genshin players are like that, which then spread over to everybody or a bunch of people making jokes or making YouTube videos on a situation that ultimately had nothing to do with them, and I don't even know if it was proven or not, because regardless of the circumstance, the internet and mostly Genshin community as a whole kind of went on a witch hunt regardless of facts. That's an entirely separate situation that I still don't care about. You also have the individuals who will repeatedly badmouth or talk trash about or hate any individual who simps for a character that they perceive to be underaged, when regardless of circumstance, these are all fictional units anyway. If you simp for a Fischl or Diona, it doesn't matter. Whether it's Nahida or Bennett, it doesn't matter, or even Shang Yun. The list goes on. I don't care, and nobody else should, because it's your enjoyment of the game, and as long as nobody in real life is being harmed, it doesn't matter. But once again, the Genshin community as a whole, not all of them, but and I'd say about 80% of at least the talkative individuals online, but that's Twitter, Reddit, or wherever else, have such an aggressive standpoint with certain things that they make the game as a whole look bad. You can have a bunch of positive interaction with the community, but you can also go to one entire Discord server and have the worst time of your life. And it makes it so difficult for somebody to say, hey, I'm a Genshin player, because you are very likely to get different responses, and a lot of them may be negative. I've even spoken with some people who play Genshin and others who don't play Genshin, who looked at the game and immediately said, nah, they're appealing to an audience of people who would like kids because of Diona and Klee's existence, which avoids any potential discussion you can actually have about the game's balance, about the game's quality. And I think that's unfair. If you dislike Genshin, that's perfectly fine. If you played it and dropped it and it wasn't for you, cool. But I think the issue lies with people who continuously will badmouth the game, who will leave the community and constantly say, yeah, the Genshin community or the Genshin game is awful. Because people who may enjoy it don't ever get into it. And people who do play it and do enjoy it may have their opinion shifted to being much more negative because now they're looking at things from your perspective as opposed to their own. Genshin has a fantastic combat system. It has a nice elemental reaction system that you can legitimately enjoy. And you can ignore it too, but you can also emphasize teamwork between certain units, such as miHoYo and Raiden, or Zhongli buffing other Archons, or the Adepti. The lore and story building is quite nice, and yes, I know we're getting another patch of sand, and I hate it too. But if you're an explorer like me, you may legitimately like having more regions and more areas to explore. You may like listening to lore and finding new weapons or new artifact sets. I'm a lore guy. I like reading all of this. I like learning more about the characters. But I think it becomes a bit more difficult to do and a bit more difficult to enjoy the longer and more interaction you have with certain aspects of the community. If you follow every guide, you might only get conflicting information. If you follow every guide, you might also end up going in the wrong direction, because some guides will inform you of information that is generally useful but not niche enough to clarify when certain things may not be good. An example could be the Echoes of an Offering set. I thought it was bad if you had over 60 ping. It's bad and awful if you have over 200. Below 100 ping, it's perfectly fine. And if you're utilizing a bow like Thundering Pulse, Shimonai's may not be the best for you because you don't want to burst. Outside of this, you may also have the infinite complaints about Spiral Abyss being too easy, but then when it's buffed and made difficult, it's too hard suddenly, and that doesn't count as any game. Then you have the constant people who want more difficult content but refuse to interact with the characters themselves. So it makes things a bit skewed. You also have whales who may have C6 or C3 Raiden, and as such, difficulty to them is entirely different from somebody who's free to play or even a light spender. I've made a full review on Genshin, go watch that if you haven't already, but at the end of the day, I do think it is legitimately hard to have a discussion about this game, not just because of how aggressive the community is, but how aggressive everyone outside of Genshin may be towards you if you play it. It's very easy to fall into a trap of continuously hating the game. But this may not even be to your own doing. It could be because people talk badly about certain aspects of the game, whether it's the character, whether it's a new region, or the combat, or the difficulty, or all of the above, or even how you can have outside perspectives constantly thrown at you from Twitter, from Reddit, from YouTube. And that in turn sours your opinion of the game to a point where you may drop it, or just stop playing it, or stop mentioning it. I want people to be able to talk about the game and enjoy it. I enjoy it, and I play a bunch of different other games. And I don't think it's fair to criticize somebody who either spends money on the game or doesn't, because that money could have just easily gone to a different game that they might not have enjoyed. So if you're enjoying it, don't feel bad about it. If you simp for a character, don't feel bad about it. At the end of the day, I personally, and I think a bunch of other people, shouldn't care who you enjoy and who you like. If you simp for Nahida, go right ahead. I mean, she has some good art, I'm not gonna lie. But hey, that's just my opinion. Tell me yours. If you enjoy, consider subscribing, or don't. That is entirely optional. Either way, I hope you have a good time, and if you do play Genshin, good luck on your rolls.